All right. Hi, we're back with another video. We're getting into a bit of an opinionated topic, and from my personal experience and what I've seen, and just kind of going from there based on like the definition of like what a trans woman is, because I feel like it's such an umbrella term for so many different walks of life and so many different people. And I want to give a couple examples of like what I mean by that. And the idea that like when you see in the news that like this is a trans person, and some people only ever see like 2 or 3 articles of like what a trans person is, and they go off of that for the rest of their lives, and they make their decisions off of that for the rest of their lives. And when they see an actual trans person in like society, they have no idea that they're even trans, because like they may see an article that has like a drag queen and they're all like crazy hair and their makeup's all insane. And this is not the energy that I've ever had. I've had my makeup done in like drag style once, and it was totally goofy and it was kind of fun and whatever, but like I would never really do that on a regular basis. I'd probably do it again if my friend would like do that for me again. That was kind of awesome just to see like what they could do, kind of thing. I'm so inexperienced with makeup and I need to get better at it. But that's one of the things that I just have like a mental roadblock with, or like when I do things that lays like under my eye kind of funky, and then it looks like I get crow's eyes kind of thing. I'm like, is it better for me to like just not wear makeup? And that's kind of where I'm at usually whenever I do it. I'll do like a little bit of eyeliner, and that's literally it. At this point, after surgery, I'd like to do more with like doing like a cat eye thing and just like experimenting with some of that. I got to go pick up more makeup at some point. I'm still like recovering with numbness from everything, so it's like we'll give it a little bit of time. But anyway, there's layers to this. It's like a thing, right? If you transition early, right? If you start puberty blockers, and I know I want to talk about trans youth care again, because like there's the argument that like, oh, but like nobody should be on trans youth care. But like as a functioning society, if there were like a food shortage, or if we just want to like live in a like sustainable society and we don't want to have people like overeating, do we actually need like the lunking guys that are like 325 pounds of muscle, taking testosterone, going to the gym every day? Opinionated, right? I feel like it's a little bit of a waste of resources on like overall inflating the cost of food in the country, kind of thing. And maybe like, guys being on like hormone blockers up until a certain point isn't like the end of the world if they decide, okay, I'm going to be a guy now. And then they can be lean and fit, and they can still be very attractive, right? I mean, there's a lot of guys that are like really attractive, lean, fit kind of build, right? And that way they don't have to live in the gym and like explode their backs and arms and damage their shoulders and rotary cuffs. And that's just my opinion, whatever, like just take it how you will, right? But societally, we've hit the point that we have machines that we can do what we need to with machines. We have forklifts, we have like power tools and, construction vehicles, and there's no like super need for these like giant guys. And if you want to be a giant guy, great, that's cool. If you want to be benching like 250 pounds while you're in like ninth grade, it's entirely possible you can go down that route. But like that again is kind of like a lifelong commitment. So I just wanted to go over like the other side of that. It's just like not everybody, wants that to be their cup of tea, kind of thing. Not everybody wants to like live that life, right? So if you're a guy, you're born a guy, right? And you don't want to like be in that range of like what you have to do for the rest of your life to maintain fitness, or like some people may feel that way, or you could focus on cardio, but it really all depends on like where your headspace is, right? And I'm not saying that like, oh, this is like the basis of like making the decision to transition. I think it is more than that, sure, but I'm just saying like in regards to puberty blockers, I feel like it would be better on resources, but whatever. I mean, I'm not saying it's right or wrong, right? I'm saying that like if you're on puberty blockers, you have a different experience than somebody that transitioned like when I did. I transitioned when I was 22. I started hormones after I had them in the closet for a year. I kept them in the closet for a year. There was no propaganda. There was no like parades in my area. There was nothing really online. There was no like major trans like advocacy groups or anything that everybody assumes. And I've heard it literally, listen, 1,000 times now, at least in the past year, that you've been brainwashed into living this type of lifestyle. No, I haven't. I came up with my own decisions. I like this is something that was eating away at me, and until I knew that I could actually do this, then I was like, oh, that clicks. And then I like started hormones. I paid for my own blood work, and it wasn't until I got my own physician 8 months later that they were like, oh, you've actually been on the ball with this. Like your levels are good, but like I was taking tablets at the time, and I switched to injections, and within that window of like the 8 months on tablets compared to like the next 4 months on intermuscular injections, then like my results got like a lot better kind of thing. It was just like, okay, I am girl now, and I'm just girl. And you don't have to take my word for it. I mean, I can give you testimony of like the people that I run into whenever I was at like the bars and stuff, and they were just like, oh my God, I couldn't even tell, like, you're gonna be such a beautiful woman. And I'm like, thank you. You know, it's like, that was my life at that point. It went from being, are you a boy or a girl, to like, oh my God, you're so gorgeous. And it was kind of awesome. It wasn't until I stopped hormones for about 2 years that like it went back to being everything prior to being on hormones, but like times 10. Like all the fears, all of the need to like be on hormones again, just like this emptiness and just like a void. It felt like I was hollow. There was probably some health conditions that followed with that. I have a lot of back issues, I have like hip issues, and your skeletal system's still developing between 18 to 25 years old. I was 22, I took hormones until I was 24, and then I stopped. I probably lost out on a little bit of like hip development, stuff like that. And is it why I have issues? Possibly. I'm not going to completely rule it out. So like that's the thing, is like you have to understand like trans people kind of understand their care, and whenever other people intervene and say like you need to stop hormones kind of thing, there's things that you go through that aren't pleasant, like little like menopausal hair all over your body that you didn't have before, this little like white hairs. Yes, it's not cisgender, a female birth, menopause kind of thing, but it is the trans woman experience of menopause. This is why I continue to say I'm living the trans woman experience. And whenever people comment, by the way, that like, oh, you'll never be a woman, like, do you think this phases somebody like me? I've been reading this since, the beginning of last year, 2025, and it's like it was boring like the second or third time then. Now I'm on like maybe like the 3,500th time that I've read this. And if you think that like even phases us, it's just like you look like cookie cutter kind of boring. Like, what are you even talking about? Like, do people around you even view you as like intricate or like somebody that they can talk to or feel comfortable around? Because I feel like the answer is no. I don't know. Opinions, right? That's what I'm saying. So like somebody has started puberty blockers and started hormones before they ever, like a trans woman, a male at birth starting estrogen that was on puberty blockers up until 18, and then they start hormones then, and they never experience male puberty. Totally different ballpark than me. I'm extremely jealous of these girls these days, because it's like if I would have known about puberty blockers, that would have been amazing. It wasn't something that I learned in school. It wasn't anything that like anybody around my area did. I had to juggle like, are my friends and family going to accept me? This isn't something that anybody does around here, but like I know me kind of thing, and I know what like the best path for me is going to be kind of thing, right? I know what headspace I want to be in. I know what body I want to be able to go through life in, right? But there's a lot to it, right? Because it's like, I was even concerned at that point in my life making this decision. 22 years old, starting hormones, I was like, I am concerned about supply chain issues with this medication. But then I also thought, like, do I want to chronically drink myself to death? Do I want to abuse substances until like I have a shortcoming? Do I want to, get married, have children, and then in my 40s say, I already know what I've wanted for like 20 years, and this is what I'm going to pursue now. So I knew at that point in time, I have to do this, or this isn't going to like functionally work in my lifetime. Like, it's just going to be like it's going to be a backlog of like regret no matter what until it's done, kind of thing. But I think the curse that all trans women do share under this entire umbrella, unless you started early, puberty blockers, no male puberty kind of thing, that you kind of have this regret that you didn't start soon enough, or you could have started sooner, or I wish I would have started sooner. And you have to like always go back to that, because 100% of the time, every trans woman I know regrets transitioning when they did. I didn't mean to hold you there, but I kind of did. I just wanted to see what you'd think. But trans women at a certain point always will say, I wish I would have started sooner. I wish I would have realized this sooner. I wish I would have taken the step sooner. I wish I didn't have these changes. And then whenever you like look at trans people and like how we have to like say that like surgeries are medically necessary, you don't seem to understand that like for me, after stopping hormones and starting again, I was girl. And then I start hormones, and then like I'm like not passing in the public anymore. It wasn't this like, are you a guy or a girl anymore? And it was just kind of like, hey dude, you kind of look like a woman. You need to like fix that kind of thing. And these were things that people would say to me, and it's just like, I don't know how anybody views me anymore. I've lost like my confidence. And it wasn't until I got this upper facial feminization surgery, 2 months ago, that like I finally got my confidence up again, that I actually feel like me again, to a sense. And it's a thing that like I can't fully explain if you haven't experienced this, if you haven't waited for like over 9 years for this surgery to be able to feel that like, okay, this is where I was before and I'm back there now, and like I can like live my life again, and I feel confident being me again, and I can go out and be confident. But at the same time, the world is making it so that you have to feel like you have to look over your shoulder at this point, being a trans person in public. And I don't know what it is about the people in my area, but like it does feel different to go out. There has never been a problem with me in this area that is largely unaccepting of trans people, as they would say in like anonymous groups online. Like they would, do this or that if they ever saw a trans person in the bathroom, kind of thing. So it's like I read these things. You do know trans people can read, right? When you say like this stuff. Anyway, it's a lot, right? It's a lot to like juggle. So I come from a place that like I do feel like transitional surgeries kind of are medically necessary, because like one, it helps with our psyches, because I've been living in a loop and a depression and going to bed crying how many like days out of how many years of my life since these changes. Like my forehead was more jutting, caveman like. I couldn't do like certain makeup with my eyes that now I'm getting closer to. My nose is still a little bit numb, so I'm waiting until like that all eases up, and then we're gonna like give it a good solid try again. And like, can you imagine like what I'm gonna be able to pull off once I can do makeup? Because like I'm not wearing makeup, and most guys also don't understand that like they're in love with makeup. They're not in love with women. They're in love with like women's ability to do makeup. Because I feel like certain women that can do their makeup really well, like they just attract so many guys. Like, and the guys don't seem to correlate that like, hey, that you have makeup on, or I don't know. That's opinions, right? Opinions. But like I'm saying, we talked about early transition. We're talking about somebody like that had some testosterone exposure as far as a trans woman goes. But then there's also like the trans women in their 30s. They can be a little bit even later than that. And this is beyond like the point where your skeletal system's developing. And I don't know if it's a blessing or a curse to start hormones at this point, but I see some girls come out super freaking passing, and I'm super jealous. And at that point, like they don't have to worry about this muscular skeletal issue that like could potentially have been effective because of like the way that I handled my hormones, kind of thing. But at the same time, like I'm trying to raise awareness of the importance of not starting and stopping your medication. And whenever like I read that some trans girls are like, I'm going to stop transitioning because of the way the world's going, and I'm just going to lay low for now, and I'm going to start hormones again later. And it doesn't work like that, to in a sense that like your body makes changes and certain tissue doesn't redevelop, and you lose a certain amount of yourself by doing that. So I would highly suggest not doing that, from personal experience, but to each their own. Life is a learning experience, and I just hope that there's no like negative effects for you for doing that. But back on topic, trans girls have started hormones in their 30s, right? And at this point, you've lived your life as a guy how long now? And to me, it's just like, how did it not click sooner? How did you not make this decision sooner? From like my standpoint of it, because it's like, I just don't know. I just like, even for me, I'm a little bit like, how did you not know? Or did you know, and did you just decide you're not going to start hormones because you need more job stability, or you need to figure something else out, or you were living in an unstable situation and you didn't want to add more instability, which I can understand, right? So I mean, if you started hormones in this range, like, give me a comment down below. Let me know like why you decided to wait until this point, or if it was something that just kind of clicked, or how that played out for you. And I'm not saying that it's like detrimental to your transition. I'm not saying that you can't pass, and I'm not saying that like you're not going to have a fulfilling experience by transitioning at this time period. But I feel like it all depends on genetics, and it all depends on like where you're living, and it all depends on like your effort that you put into things, and if you're going to actually like, try to be a certain way, or like you don't have to even be a certain way. And that's like the beauty of being a trans woman, I feel like, because again, it's such an umbrella term for how many different varieties of individuals there are. Like, it's just really cool to interact with my community and see what they're up to. And like, some of us excel at what we do in the workforce, and some of us excel at like these other niche things. Music, it seems like a lot of trans women are really passionate about music, and like a lot of girls are in the video games. Yes, there's certain video games that there's just like you know a cult following, I guess, kind of, with them. But I mean, it's just fun and interesting to see how the trans community has developed since I started hormones. There's so much new terminology that I'm not even fully caught up with everything, right? So like we talked about, XYZ. Now we're going to talk about like transitioning in your 40s, and you have children, and you're married at this point. And this is the one that I feel like I want to say like I can't relate with the most, but I almost feel like saying that I relate with this one the absolute most at my 22 years of age, making the decision and thinking this and playing this through my head in this scenario. And I'm married and I have these kids, and I decide I have to do this for my own mental health. I have to make this decision. And how do you get out of that? How do you like drop the commitment of a marriage based off of this? Because normally what I see is the marriage falls apart. Sometimes, if you're married to a cis woman, they may be accepting, but it's pretty rare kind of thing. It's a lot to process. It's a lot for a lot of people to process at this point. And I feel like you're under the gun of just like making a decision that could potentially, not necessarily harm your family at this point, but like that they may feel hurt, they may feel confused, and it may be a lot harder to move forward from there. And as well, the effects that you're going to have from hormones are going to be a lot less than if you started earlier, right? So it kind of comes down to, what the decision making is. Everybody under this umbrella that I'm describing, they are all trans women, right? But it's all a different layer. So like the girls these days that are on puberty blockers, that start early, you literally would not know that they're not girls almost all the time. Literally almost all the time. this is what I feel like partially makes some of the legislators uncomfortable in making laws with things. I also feel that, the trans women that started super, super late um, are what some people like picture all trans women to be, and that's their takeaway. Like I said, like there's the drag queens, there's some of the older trans women, there's people that have basically given up and are just abusing a bunch of substances, and one of the substances are estrogen kind of thing. So it's like, what on the spectrum, you know do these people like interpret us as, what they interpret us as? And so like some people have their stuff together so much better. I kind of in a way regret not starting hormones a little bit later. If I would have reached a financial security, right? Because whenever you start and you have like limited money, it's expensive to transition. Even if you're doing the bare minimum, you're not doing electrolysis, laser hair removal, all of that, you still need money for clothes. You still need money for maintaining yourself in ways that you probably weren't maintaining yourself as a guy. You put a lot more effort into yourself after you transition, I feel like, in your appearance, in the ways that you present yourself, because you want to look good. You're putting in a lot of time and effort in yourself. And again, even in this scenario, the early puberty blockers, hormones, somebody like me with some exposure, and then like somebody in their 30s where they may have been like working on an oil field, and now they have all this money and they want to transition, and they're going to be able to do it fluently. There's not going to be a lot of roadblocks for them, or there wasn't up until everything got politicized. And then, yeah, somebody even older might have even more money. They might have even less money than somebody here because they've taken care of a family. It really all depends how this all plays out. These aren't like things that I can say like, hey, this is the best time to start kind of thing, because that literally comes down to the individual themselves. And if you truly, already know that you're going to transition, you want to transition, this is what you need to do, you feel an emptiness if you can't do it, and your youth, and like I can only imagine like how the whirlwind of these past few years have been, or this past year anyway, because like, yeah, if I could have like figured it out, if I would have been aware that this is something that you could do earlier on, I definitely would have been in that ballpark. I wouldn't have needed surgeries. I have a tracheal shave consultation in 15 days. I'm a little bit worried because it's like I'm told that it feels like you're suffocating, or your throat's itchy, or you might have trouble swallowing, or maybe even like breathing for a couple days, something like that. And it's a whole process to recover from surgery anyway. This was insane. If I needed revisionary work on it, I don't think I could do it. I have a consultation for lower facial feminization surgery in like 14 months, 13 months, something like that. I don't know if I can do it. I don't know if I can go through with it. I kind of like my face how it is, but at the same time, how much harassment do I really want to put up with people in general public? How much like lifelong potential nerve damage and loss of feeling in certain parts of my face do I really want to risk? It's not like guaranteed kind of thing, but all because I didn't start hormones sooner, and because I stopped for a window of time. Um, Personally, like I need to go to like another rheumatologist, start trying to figure out why I have a fluid of unknown origin in my spine. I have a very cracky, poppy lower back. I have bulging discs in my back. I have bulging discs in my neck. I've been told that I needed surgery like 5 years ago on my neck and back. Um, but we're just doing stretches. We're just waiting it out to try to find something else to alleviate these issues. Hi, focus. Hi, I need a new camera at some point. Um, but it's not the highest priority. I feel like me just rambling and talking still important to kind of get out there. Maybe not important, but it may ease some individuals, and it may put you in a different state of mind and perspective and appreciation for that. Like you're even able to do this. Like this could have been outlawed entirely, and if you've transitioned and this is something that like you are benefiting from, or you feel like that you've made the right decision, and that that the access to this at all is a blessing. And like I've said it before, I'm going to say in other videos that like this medication is largely put framed as like, oh, it's like this big expense kind of thing. And in reality, it can be like $160 a year. I think the most important thing is for like trans women to make sure to stick with their physicians and to go every 3 to 6 months to get blood work and make sure that the levels are being adjusted accordingly. I think it's important to make sure that like if you are on hormones, to understand the differences between the ways that you can ingest them, and like the sublingual compared to the subcutaneous, compared to the intermuscular, compared to the patches. And I think it should also be a little bit better communicated between you and your physician. I know whenever I transitioned, like I had my stuff in the closet, I did shady internet hormones because literally nobody in my area prescribed them. I was at a physician locally maybe like 4 or 5 years ago, and they were like, oh yeah, no, we're going to start doing that locally. We just haven't done it yet. They still don't do it. So it's just been like, any trans people out here, I understand that like it's a little bit of an issue for like accessing hormones. So like the other thing is like trans women that say they are women that have no access to hormones and they are unable to get them. That's something that it's just like I feel like there's other terms for things. There's the femboy, terminology. Like if you want to be on hormones but you're not on hormones, the excuse isn't. It doesn't feel right to me when the excuse on that is used as like I don't have access to medication. So I'm trans, but I'm not medically transitioning. And trans women that aren't medically transitioning aren't trans women. Takeaway that some people like get upset about. And in a sense, it feels like you're doing a disservice to the trans women that have gone that extra mile. I don't get my hormones locally. I have to travel over an hour in a car to like just do blood work every so often, just for my physicians to maybe look over the charts. But like I'm the one looking over the charts, double, triple check like where my levels are. My levels were low for how many years? And that's another thing too, is that on the spectrum of like what a trans woman is, like somebody could be transitioning for how many years? They might be doing intermuscular subcutaneous injections, and then one day they might decide they want to go on tablets. And you need to understand that like it kind of fluctuates a bit. You have less estrogen intake on like sublingual than you do on injections. So like these are things that like I feel need expressed a little bit more when physicians start trans women on medication, that like if you're going to try to reach a certain goal, like you probably want to switch to injections at some point. I know most people are squeamish about doing injections entirely, but it gets to a point where you're like, okay, I feel like I need more results from like what I'm doing kind of thing. Or it feels like I'm not like, I feel like I'm on the right track, but I feel like I could be doing better with my transition kind of thing. And that's whenever you make the decision to switch to injections. If you switch back to sublingual after so many years, that's not like the end of the world, because you're just maintaining the development that you already have received kind of thing. But as far as like, people saying that they're trans and not medically transitioning, I feel like in a sense, like I feel for you. I feel for you and I understand like what you're going through, maybe, possibly, but like you have to make the effort to get on medication if you're going to get on medication. I personally don't love the idea of that terminology, and I know a lot of trans girls in my community like frown upon that and say like I'm gatekeepy or whatever. I think that's like the lowest form of gatekeepy you could be with this, because like I feel like if somebody is totally not femme, not on hormones, and they're saying that they're a trans woman, and then the media picks up this as the image of like what a trans woman is, that does a disservice to all of us. And I'm not saying that like it's not in your cards, but I'm kind of thinking like maybe it's a little bit premature to make that title decision or that title change, and to go through the effort. It's not easy for any of us. It's not easy for any of us, like largely, and just like in these areas that it is like super accessible or super easy to just like go to your physician and talk to them and whatever, there's still like referral letters, there's still like this whole goofy process behind it. And I think like some of these things could be reworked, but I also think like I think it could be reworked in a way that's a little bit easier. I don't agree with like, oh, HRT should be over the counter. There's a finite amount of everything in the world, and while these medications are abundant, it's not like I don't think because of like the health implications of starting and stopping something. This isn't some party drug. This isn't something that, oh, I'm gonna do this for 2 weeks. I'm gonna stop. Then I'm gonna go do it another like for a month, and but then I'm gonna stop again. Like that's gonna mess with your like, you know, a lot of things. It could potentially like mess with your immune system if you're like really playing with it like that. This has been something I have said many times. This is a medication that you start and you stick with it. It's a lifelong commitment. I made that decision and I weighed these pros and cons, and I did this in a responsible way because I knew I would prefer to be on this than drinking or alcohol or just smoking myself to complete death on cigarettes kind of thing in a dive bar and being upset at the world. And I just feel like, you know, it's not like the worst thing, right? It's not like, and by any means, it's not like the worst thing kind of thing, but like I just feel like, you know, if you want to transition, like you have to actually take the steps to do it. And there's already enough confusion in the world. People are, you know, saying like trans women are men and they stick with that, but literally, like I said, puberty blockers, starting hormones early enough to never have male puberty, literal girls, super jealous, everyone on this entire, you know, the 40-year-old that started hormones, they're jealous of the 30-year-old. The 30-year-old's jealous of me. I'm jealous of and on every other wavelength, we're all jealous of these, this youth that's just able to pass and just able to live their lives and not have to face as much scrutiny and judgment and risk in public life, and the scariness of like looking over your shoulder and really just wondering, because like you never truly know like who's going to like be that like insane person in public these days, because we have been painted with such a target on our back that it's like I am happy being me. I am completely comfortable being me. People are comfortable around me. People like my company, and it's just really frustrating when you just don't know how everybody interacts or how everybody interprets a trans person, right? You know, and obviously it's the job of these media outlets to kind of cover these things in such a way to like paint the picture that like we are like this demonized group of whatever, and it's like they're using like not the best of us, right? Largely, or it's not even somebody that's trans, it's somebody that's just like pretending, or like I said, it's just somebody that's a drag queen kind of thing, and that's like the brunt of the interpretation of what people think a trans woman is. I can't tell you how many people think like, okay, well, you have a deep voice, like you're obviously not on hormones, there's no like your voice didn't change. Or just how many people tell me like, oh, well, you have an Adam's apple, like you're a guy, I could tell you're a guy kind of thing. I could tell right away, even if I look like totally femme. And then like I just don't know how people interpret me all the time. But there are times that like other times that like people will literally interpret me as girl. So that's like the flip side of everything, is like it's just like it's a game of juggling. And so for somebody like me, it's just like I never truly know how people interpret me. Yes, if I got a little better with makeup and I went out in public, I'd probably be a lot more passing and not have to focus or worry about it. But at the same time, I don't care what bathroom I go into. I could go into the guy's room and not care. It's not going to phase me. It's going to be stinky. People don't flush the toilets. It's really gross and stuff. But like that happens in the women's room too. And like I literally just focus on trying to make people as uncomfortable, like as as uncomfortable as possible. No, I literally just try to like avoid people and like not have to like make anybody uncomfortable. It's so frustrating to just try to use a restroom in the past year or so, and like how these certain states are doing these certain bathroom bans and whatnot, and just like not knowing where we're able to even go to the bathroom kind of thing. If you were traveling, you have to pull up a list. You literally just have to see like, and so we've hit this point of like less than citizen status is how it feels. Like we have enough of our rights on the fence, or just, you know, and it's not that like trans women want to go live in the women's restroom, by the way. It's that like we want to perform a bodily function that every healthy person does, kind of thing. um so it's like, I don't know. I like do with this information what you will. It's like I said, more of an opinionated talk, and I'm just like trying to express that like there's so much of a variety of trans women, and like so just using me as the experience. If I were on puberty blockers and then I started estrogen early enough, I would have never, and if I would have never stopped hormones and I would have stuck with my medication and I would have followed up with my doctor and I would have made sure that my levels are intact and we're moving in the right direction and there's not going to be any of these road bumps, and like I have accepting parents, all of these stars aligning essentially, I would have been girl. You would have literally not known the difference. Potentially, I wouldn't have had my voice drop. I wouldn't need vocal surgery if I wanted to truly change my voice without like changing my voice. So they're like, and I'm even jealous of some of the older trans women that were able to get a stable job, go to college, find something that they're passionate about, or excel in a certain field, and now they are set and they can just kind of do what they need to do and what they want to do, and they go to work still, but they have some sort of savings and they're able to take care of themselves. And if things get too crazy, they can, leave the country. It's not going to make the biggest impact on them. They still have money. They still can, So I'm kind of in like a weird in between. And so, yeah, I've never had, like, I want to leave you with this thought that, like, I never had a guy life. I never had a guy life. I never lived the life as a guy, right? I never was a guy. I was like a teenage boy, right? Sort of, I guess, if you want to call it that. I had a neck beard. I played Xbox a lot. I'm going to say that in every video. I played Xbox real good. But up until a certain point, like, I just, decided I needed to make this change. I'm not like for the body hair. I'm just like, there's so many different things that were making this decision easy for me. And I had like this horrible hyperhidrosis. I had headaches constantly that I was homeschooled after 10th grade. I needed to make a decision. I didn't want to drink myself to death. I didn't want, my parents to lose me. But by starting hormones, my parents also kind of thought that they lost me. And so, if that makes sense. And it wasn't for years until, my mom, well, it wasn't for about a year until like my mom really kind of like got back on my side and was like, I see that you're happy. And that's kind of how that went. But it's an ongoing battle. And like, if you want everyone to accept you, I'm sorry, but that's not going to happen. And it didn't happen in my time frame. It didn't happen in like the easier days of transitioning before everybody knew about transitioning, kind of thing. And I feel like things would have been so much smoother if we weren't saying transgender for everyone all the time, and literally every person in the world sitting on their phone like looking up trans people. And everybody makes their own opinions based off what they see. I think we need more like strong trans role models to kind of elevate our entire community, to make it that we're not looked at such like a joke level, but at the same time, it's kind of whatever, you know? I mean, everybody's going to have their own opinions. I don't think everybody should transition. If you want to say that, like, you know, God made God made man and man shouldn't trans and whatever, like, cool. Like, you do you. Like, you know, we need farmers. We need we need guys doing guy things. I don't think everybody should be trans, right? But um, you know, it's a thing, right? It's just a thing, and it's sad that it's become like what people look at somebody that's like a trans woman, that's their entire personality, that is their entire personality, because it is such a small bit of like what I am. Like, I feed woodpeckers, I do playing card magic, I do what I can to like entertain myself in ways that most people, like most cis guys, probably wouldn't do. Focus, hi. um but yeah, I mean, there's not much more that I have to say about that. Um, and it's just like, yeah, I mean, again, like I said, this is opinionated based off my experiences. I know I'm going to rub people the wrong way by talking about that, but like the version of me that started hormones with puberty blockers versus the version of me that would have worked and had money would have been way two different two different individuals. Me with kids and a family, I feel like I would have been so empty and depressed that I wouldn't have been able to transition, and I would have just ended up being a depressed guy, like a really depressed guy, like an alcoholic, hardcore alcoholic, like just not being able to express myself, never tapping into my feelings kind of guy, right? So, what's best in life? What's the best path for anyone? I mean, I hope this is a little bit of food for thought. And like, transitioning isn't easy. It's a process. It has such an uprooting effect on your just general life. So that's why it's just like the takeaway of like how everybody kind of interprets us, how everybody lectures us that we're mentally ill, how everybody has this opinion that it's like cookie cutter personality of us, when it's just like, what are you doing? And I think we should normalize like checking in on these people's wives on social media if they have these type of things to say about trans people, and just checking in on her and asking her how she's doing and just making sure that she's okay, right? Because like, I don't know anymore. Like, are these people just like overall abusive? Or are they just like focusing on us to vent and they're actually decent people in their lives? I don't really know. So, check in on transphobes' wives. And I don't know. I'll see you in the next video.